You're listening to That Music Podcast with Bryson Tarvin, the curriculum designer and educational consultant behind That Music Teacher and the Elementary Music Summit. Each week, Bryson and his guests will dive into the reality of being an elementary music teacher and how music can truly be transformative in the lives of the students you serve. Show notes and resources mentioned in this episode can be found at thatmusicteacher.com.
Hello and welcome back to That Music Podcast. Today we are going to do a little bit of a reflection. I guess I'm going to be doing a little bit of reflection on the past few months. Well, I guess a little bit longer than that. The last year, basically, of me teaching sixth grade choir. So I'm sitting here recording this in February of 2024, and I actually started teaching choir for the first time in August of 2023. So my typical schedule for the majority of my career has been pre-K through sixth grade general music, split between two schools. One of the schools is pre-K through 4, and one of the schools is fifth grade and sixth grade. So as my district continues to grow, we have been getting creative with making our schedule work because there are just so many kids, especially at my fifth and sixth grade school, because we're only there a few periods a day. So one of the ways that I offered to help make the schedule work a little better was offering a section of choir, because quite frankly, in the way my contract works, I have a class cap for general music, but I don't have a class cap for choir. And I was super excited because when I brought this idea to my principal, I was like very clear in saying, hey, I know that you can put as many kids as you want in this class and it'll work, but it's only going to work if we have kids that really want to be there. And much to my I'm so thankful that he responded with the exact same thing. He says, yes, I don't want to have the students that want to be there have it ruined by kids that don't want to be there. So that's been great. So we have about 50 kids in the choir, which is a lot of sixth graders, but it's been really cool to figure out how to make it work. I've student taught in the choir setting, but it has been a hot minute. I did that very, very first thing I did when I was student teaching. So it's been quite a while now. So I student taught in the choral setting, but it's been a while. I did my student teaching at a 7th and 8th grade school doing choir, and I learned a lot about myself during that time. One thing being that at the time, my piano chops were nowhere near what they needed to be an effective choir teacher. So thankfully, I can share that my piano skills have gotten a lot better since then. I'm still by no means a pianist, but I can get by. I can lead warm-ups. I can do some basic accompaniment, and we're good to go. So a little bit about how the schedule works. With my choir, I see them for about 35 minutes or so every 3 days, which is great. I quickly learned that when you have 50 sixth graders all in the same room, you have to, I was quickly reminded of the fact that classroom management is such a huge deal, especially when you have that many kids. So there were quite a few times at the beginning where I really felt like we didn't get much done in the rehearsal, but I was okay with that because I was being very clear with my expectations. For instance, if they were talking over me, I was done. I was not going to continue talking. I was going to wait for them. And I did this in a way that really made it clear of these are my expectations. I'm going to hold you to those expectations. And if we're not meeting those expectations, we're not making music, which is a problem. So I'm really thankful to say, although we've had some issues with classroom management and with just 56 graders in a room, the majority of our classes have been great. And we definitely kind of have figured out how to make it work and how to understand each other and how to have fun and be silly, but also being aware of where that line is and not crossing it so we can still get done everything we need to get done. So one thing that probably drives my students nuts about me is that I put a lot of focus on the warm-up. One, I think it's so important, especially it's fourth period. Like it's really early. It's not even 10 o'clock yet. And we're singing. And I want them to not only warm up their voices, but also get used to using different parts of their voices that they aren't necessarily used to using. And I like doing that in a way that's a little silly. A lot of my warm-ups are super like funny and getting them to laugh and kind of distracting them from the idea that they're singing outside of their comfort zone. Even those that really enjoy singing, sometimes when I'm having them go in their higher range or their lower range, it's not what they're used to. So that's something that I think that has gone really well, is putting such a strong emphasis on warm-ups. On the flip side of that, I have learned very quickly that I need to be very, how do I want to put this? I have to be very honest with the kids, because sometimes these kids are like, why are we doing these warm ups? Why are we still doing warm ups? Why do I have to warm up? This isn't the fun part. I just want to sing this fun song. So I'll flat out say, like, we're doing this because it's warming up your muscles, just like you wouldn't run a marathon before warming without warming up. You wouldn't sing. But also, we're learning skills and we're practicing listening. We're practicing singing together. We're practicing part singing. All these things are going together. So while it might look like we're just, doing a warm up to get started, we're actually doing a lot of learning through that. And I feel like for the most part, once I was explicit in that, the kids got it. And the kids were like, all right, even if this isn't my most favorite thing that we do in this class, I can kind of see what the point is. Before we continue, I wanted to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by the Steady Beat Survival Guide. In this free ebook, we'll dive into my top 20 songs, chants, and activities for Steady Beat so that you can truly build the strong foundation of musical understanding that is just so incredibly important when we're talking about a concept so core like Steady Beat. To grab your free copy of this ebook, head on over to thatmusicteacher.com/steadybeat, or you can check out the description wherever you're listening. Now let's dive back into the episode. I also try to do a lot of sight reading. I don't try to do it every day because, let's be honest, no one wants to do sight reading every day. And we're gonna get eye rolls and we're gonna get and I feel the same way when I was in choir. So I get it. So I try to do every few lessons, I'll do something, some sight reading, and I typically use this kind of out of the examples of like hardcore, like this is sight reading rather than sight reading a piece, using the Kodai 333. One, I love because I can tell them, hey, I use this in grad school. And they're like, what? No way, we're not in grad school. And I'm like, yeah, I know. How cool is that? But also it's pretty simple. Well, they can be. There are ones that are not. But also it's just easy to fit in their folders, and things like that. So I use that. I try to make it really short sight reading. And I'm also pretty explicit with the fact of, hey, I know sight reading isn't everyone's favorite thing, but the more we focus, the quicker it'll go, and we'll be able to go through this. Sometimes if I don't have their focus and they're really just not giving me any effort, I'll be like, hey, we're not moving on until we do this. So like, let's give it a good old college try, right? And the kids do pretty well with it. I've tried to kind of scaffold it in a way where even those that don't necessarily have a super strong foundation in solfege feel like we're not necessarily starting from scratch, but we're also not starting so far ahead, that we're not all able to access it. But I'll also be honest, I'm not super stringent with my sight reading by solfege. Yes, I think there is so much value in being able to look at a piece of music and break it down into the solfege pieces and sing it on solfa and things like that. But I also want them to understand how it connects to other things. So for instance, a lot of my students are in band as well. So I want to have them be able to see if we can connect it in with that. But also I wanted them to be able to connect it into the pieces we're using. So whenever possible, I'll do a solfege thing from the 333. Even though I use the 333 a lot, I think it's also important to connect that to actually what we're doing whenever possible. So whenever possible, if we're working on solfege that has, or working on sight reading that has a specific concept, if I'm able to say, all right, we just practiced mi re do, cool, in this song, look, everyone look at measure 24, what do we have? Mi re do, perfect, connected, awesome, let's move on. Because I know one thing that really kind of drove me nuts when I was in school is when we would do sight reading kind of for the sake of doing sight reading, or at least that was what it looked like as a student. So that's something that I wanted to be aware of with my students. Now, when it comes to repertoire, I probably would have some choir people scoff at what we're doing because honestly, we're just kind of all over the place. But the reasoning behind that is I wanted to be able to expose my students to different types of singing. So we're doing um, a Million Dreams from The Greatest Showman. We're doing a couple octavos in various different styles. We're doing the gallop, or we're singing all, the Soulfish suite. But what I like about that is everything is still music, which again is bringing that all in. But it's also allowing them to sing in different styles and to learn singing in different styles. So, for instance, some of the songs we've learned completely by rote. Some of the songs we have you learn completely from reading on the off of the octavos, and then some a little bit back and forth, a little bit kind of a mix between the two. And I think that's important because, quite frankly, we never know what kind of teacher they're going to get in the future. Maybe they're super word heavy. Maybe they're super let's read off the score heavy. And how can we prepare them for both, but also prepare them for the reality that they might not get the other stuff later. And so that's why I like to kind of do it a little bit different ways, kind of approaching it more as like a survey of choir in general, where we're kind of trying lot of different things and exposing or giving them a lot of exposure to a lot of different things. But at the end of the day, we have a high quality product and they had fun doing it. That's kind of my goal. I'll be honest, right now we don't have any concerts scheduled. I would love to give them some sort of performance opportunity, but just because this is something new, that's not something we really put on the calendar at the end of last year. So really my goal for this whole class was to get them singing, and keep them wanting to come back. And I think I've done that so far. I think that there are definitely things that I would do differently in the future and will continue to do different in the future. And I'll briefly touch on that in a little bit. But I think overall, I've met my goal so far. The kids are loving it, at least for the most part, or at least most days. They're making music. They're being experiencing all different kinds of music. And I'll be honest, I'm having a blast as well. So what would I change? First of all, I would start the year with a little bit more of a specific plan. I when I started this year, I basically started with two pieces of music, and I said I want to do this, and then I want to see what happens next. I wish that I would have had a little bit more of a plan with how I was going to tie everything together, which is something that I can see both sides. When I start next year, if we end up doing choir on the schedule, because frankly, we don't know how that schedule is going to look like next year, yet at least. But if I end up doing choir next year, I would love to take it one step farther in the planning side of it to make sure that I can see where all the things connect throughout, a little bit sooner, because now we're starting to see how we can weave everything together. But it definitely wasn't there at the beginning. Also, I would do a better job at getting students' opinions on what we're singing. Thankfully, I've done a little bit of that so far. Once I kind of realized that was missing. But when I started at the beginning of the year, the music that I really thought they'd enjoy, they really weren't a fan of. But also vice versa. So I think it's a good for us to go in with a plan. But I also think if I were to do this again in the future, I want to build in more opportunities for them to give feedback and to learn how to respectfully give feedback. I'm going to leave that there. Leave that at that. Um, and then another thing that I really just want to change is I want to get even more comfortable using the piano. I don't use the piano in my other classes. I use a lot of singing and a lot of, unaccompanied or self-accompanied or having the students accompany or using my ukulele. But quite frankly, I don't use the piano often. Part of that is I move around like a crazy person, so being stuck behind a piano just isn't my vibe. But part of that is the fact that I'm just not a great pianist. So I, over the summer, I started practicing a few things again and kind of brought out some old octavos. And that's something I want to continue again this year, over the summer, even if I don't end up teaching choir again, because it's cool to have those skills, because for so long I never thought I would have piano skills. If you knew me in college, oh lordy. But that, I guess, everything all together, I feel really good about the music education that's been going on in this choir classroom. I firmly believe that giving students the opportunity to do choir is great in sixth grade, especially since the vast majority of them also have some other type of music. So it might be band, it might be some of them still have general music as well. I like that we're giving them more choice and more agency. We've been doing a lot of talking about how can we get students more opportunities and more abilities to choose in their education. I think this was a great one. overall, I think the process has gone really well. I love that my administration has been on board with protecting the scheduling of that to make sure that the students that are in that class are there because they want to be and not because that's what works for the schedule, which has been great. I have some work to do as an educator. I have some work to do of figuring out how I can scaffold everything back in a little bit closer, so that it's not a complete shift if they end up going from my general music classroom into choir. But quite frankly, I've been having a blast. I leave that school because that's my last class that I teach before I move to my other school. The vast majority of times when I leave the choir classroom, my heart is so full because it's just a different type of music making and also a different type of energy. Because when you have 50 sixth graders that have chosen to sing in front of you together and they let you be this crazy guy at the front who's flopping his arms around and making all kinds of weird sounds and faces. And it's just a really good model of what a classroom should be, in my opinion. Joyful and focused on what matters. I'm not focused on keeping the kids quiet and keeping the kids, in their boxes. We're focusing on making music and doing so in a way that allows all of us to move towards that goal. So I really hope this isn't the end of me teaching choir. Honestly, I'm going to advocate to keep it. It all comes down to what the schedule looks like next year, how that'll all work. Because as much as I love choir, I firmly believe that all students deserve to get music, even if they don't want to do choir. So I want to make sure that we keep the general music side of things as well. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see how the students continue to surprise me and make me grow and make me figure new stuff out. And I hope I can take you on that journey with me. So if you teach choir or if you are looking to teach choir, I would love to continue this conversation. Send me an Instagram message at that music teacher. And we're going to be doing a lot of more discussions on choir over the next, whoever knows how long. So I hope you'll join me on the journey. If you enjoyed this episode, please go ahead and leave a review wherever you are listening. Those reviews really help us understand what episodes are resonating most with you. And also it really helps because sometimes it feels like I'm just here in my basement studio screaming into the void. So it's nice to know that somebody's out there listening and finding some value in the podcast as well. If we haven't already had you join us inside that music teacher community, I would love to invite you to join us. It is our monthly membership where we have a community of elementary music educators, as well as a growing library of content-specific self-paced professional development. You can check out the link to join in the show notes wherever you're listening. And above everything else, if no one has told you lately, thank you so much for making a difference in the lives of the students that you teach.